Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to another exciting edition of Give and Go. With me as usual is Larry Coon, the author of the NBA CBA FAQ, and Eric Pincus of hoopsworld.com. I think the burning question this morning I want to throw to Larry first is, where's Rodney Stuckey going to go? So, all right, well, go ahead. Give me your take on this whole craziness that happened last night.
I'm still trying to make heads or tails of it. I don't know if David Stern nixed this trade as under his authority as commissioner, or if he did it under his authority as the fiduciary guy for the New Orleans Hornets. Dan Gilbert's letter was a smoking gun. It seems to suggest that other owners were putting pressure on him. He caved. And if you look at Gilbert's letter, he says, well, the owners of the Hornets, the 29 owners, should vote on this. But in his letter, he talked about what it would do for the Lakers. He talked about what it would do in terms of hurting the tax revenue for teams like his. And he never once mentioned the Hornets or the effect on them. I think that this is really starting to smell, and it's going to be really bad for the league.
Eric, do you agree with what Gilbert said in his letter?
I mean, he's welcome to think that, and he's not, from his perspective, there was some nonsense in there, like saying things like the Lakers are saving all this money, and that's wrong, but then they also got a trade exception, which would allow them to spend more money, so what is it? Do you want them to spend more money? I mean, come on, the Lakers were going to keep Chris Paul, sign him to like a $100 million deal the next year. They're going after Dwight Howard. Whether they get him or not, they're going to spend the money. It's nonsensical. I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but we're talking about two different things here. I mean, we're talking about collusion, which is you can't have teams come together to try to stop other teams from making moves, other than in the legal options of just making other offers, in trades with your own players. This is out of that box. The league, the NBA, which owns the Hornets, what they have to do is they have to stay away from collusion, and what they've done is they've set up a governor to make those decisions separate from them. So if David Stern is making that decision to stop this trade as the commissioner and use his veto power, that is within his right. However, as Larry was saying, if he's doing it representing either the group of teams or the Hornets, that itself is collusion, and that is not right. So it's very gray, a lot of conflict. I'm wondering if it ever got to some sort of court. A judge would not necessarily rule one way or the other. You can't say with certainty which way they would rule, but they would probably rule for the commissioner.
And this is not like the Gasol trade where it seemed pretty lopsided, although in hindsight now it pretty much gave Memphis the team they have now. However, I don't think any coach would argue that Odom, Scola, and Martin that's a pretty good return on an investment of which they won't get anything else if he leaves.
They had to trade Chris Paul here, and the rest of the league knew it. They weren't going to get superstars back, but that's what happens in trades like this. You don't trade superstar for superstar usually. You trade superstars for a package that's going to keep you afloat, that's going to help you build for the future, and that's exactly what New Orleans got here. Now, if this ever did go to court under collusion, as Eric suggests, the Dan Gilbert letter is going to be devastating. If it gets that far. I think that the league's best bet here would be to back off a little bit, allow the trade to happen in some modified form where they're going to agree to bless it. Maybe another player gets thrown in, maybe another draft pick gets thrown in, because I think they acted too hastily, and it's going to come back to bite them.
Doesn't it seem a little strange that the new CBA is supposed to be about parity and balance, and yet here we are with the Lakers, and it seems like this will probably go through, I'd imagine, if they press it hard enough. Here's another super team being formed. It's kind of hard to imagine that's how this came about from all this stuff. What do you think about that, Eric?
Well, I don't know if it's going to go through or not. I don't want to say it's likely that it's going to go through. I think there's a lot of people who are angry and upset with the NBA, a lot of media types, a lot of fans, even a lot of executives and players. Everybody seems to be upset. I'd say it's like a 98 to 95, that range of people just not getting it. I've had Celtic fans email me and say this is ridiculous, and they hate the Lakers. So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to resolve. As far as this new deal being about parity, they put in as much as they could to improve parity. But realistically, there's only so much that can be done. I mean, a star is going to want to go where they can get paid the most. They've limited what a guy like Chris Paul can make, what a guy like Kobe Bryant can make. If they were on a true free market, they'd be getting like 40, 50, 60 million dollars, and the role players would be getting WNBA money. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. So for the opportunity to go to Los Angeles, where there's a huge amount of opportunity in endorsements and other ways to make money, New York, Chicago, I mean, there are plenty of other areas in the country that aren't the biggest cities that offer other opportunities. But you can't legislate parity, and the owners did the best they could to get a deal, because if they really pushed their agenda to the max, there would not be a season. So we have a compromise, and that's where we stand today. And so far, on day 0, the whole compromise is already blown up in everybody's face.
Larry, do you think that this deal is going to ultimately get done?
I think it's 50-50. I think that David Stern is not one to turn around and say, okay, I've thought it over, and I'll let you do it after all. On the other hand, I think that they acted a little bit hastily. I mean, yeah, the whole lockout was about, well, not only the financial stuff, but getting more parity, getting it so that all 30 teams can be competing, could have access to the players, could have access to the ability to, if run well, compete for a title. And they didn't get that. It's almost like the very first time, which is coincidentally, even before they opened for business, the very first time a deal happened or was happening that was reminiscent of the old CBA, where a player was able to go back and say, I'm going to go where I want to go, they panicked and said, no, we can't let that happen. And I think they overreacted. I think it was a poor decision, and I think they're going to have to do something. Now, what's David Stern going to do? Is he going to dig in his heels and say, I've made my decision, that's it? Or is he going to back off a little bit and sort of, calm down this firestorm that's happening? 50-50 maybe, but one league source told me people react to this too soon. There's still time for something to happen.